Bring this meeting to order. We'd like to welcome everyone to the October 23rd Rutherford County School Board meeting. Tonight we have Kylie and Tyree Brown leading us in our Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you guys, very well done. If you would, if you join the board in a moment of silence for, we would like to remember Edie Emery, who lost her father, Marvin Ray Bastian, on October the 3rd of this year. Ms. Emery is an instructional specialist here at the central office. If you'll bow with us. Thank you. Okay. Approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Holliday, and second by Chairman Hodge. Any further discussion or comments from our work session? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 5 is approval of the consent agenda.
There's been 2 or 3 more volunteer coaches added since maybe you saw Tuesday night. Mr. Tackett had some that were clinicians that they kind of need to be in place. So.
And they've gone through all the steps with the application and the background
all
check.
The screening, background check, everything's been done.
Before, I know we hadn't had a motion. Well, let's get a motion in a second, if we will. And then Mr. Young.
Second.
And Mr. Hodge. I assume there's a master list of all of the volunteers. That might be helpful to all board members, but especially our 3 new, if that's possible to put together here the next few days.
Actually, I think Mr. Tackett keeps it, and also HR has. So it's both places.
Okay. All right. So, any more discussion by the board? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Ms. Joyce, I don't know any visitors. Did I?
We don't have
no visitors. Okay. Mr. Odom, if you'll take it away with number 7.
Number 7 is really a privilege. This is an honorary diploma for Staff Sergeant A.D. Reed, a Vietnam veteran. Tennessee Code Annotated 49-2-119 provides World War I, World War II, the Korean War, or the Vietnam War veterans whose education was interrupted by the service to our country with a high school diploma. When duty called, Mr. A.D. Reed stepped forward and never looked back. He put his community first by training in his educational opportunities for an M14 rifle. During his service, Staff Sergeant Reed received the National Defense Service Medal, the Army Commendation Medal, 10LC, the Bronze Star, the Vietnam Service Medal, the Vietnam Campaign Medal, the Vietnam Cross of Gallantry with Palm, the Meritorious Service Medal, the Presidential Unit Citation, the Good Conduct Medal, 3rd Award, Purple Heart, RVN Civil Action Medal, the Meritorious Unit Commendation, 10LC, and the Combat Infantry Badge, the Sharpshooter Badge 2, Overseas Bar, and Meritorious Service Medal, 10LC. Congratulations to you, Mr. Reed, and thank you. Come up this evening. We have the and is therefore awarded this Vietnam War Veteran Honorary Diploma. In testimony whereof, by the authority and it is vested, we have affixed our signatures this 4th of September 2014. This one was actually issued in the school. I have signed it, Mr. Blair has signed it, and Mr. Ash, who is now at Central Valley School, the State Commissioner of Education. Congratulations.
Board members? Anybody from the board?
Our former
You need to.
board member, Donald Jernigan, he did an excellent job of saying how we need to teach not only the educational standards, but also good citizenship. And honoring a veteran in this way is certainly an example of teaching good citizenship.
Especially, God bless you, Mr. Reed, for putting yourself in harm's way and protecting us. So God bless you. Thank you, Mr. Odom. Number 8 is Spotlight on Education. Did you want to introduce Ms. Duffield?
I'll be glad to. Our spotlight on education this evening will be Ms. Beth Duffield. She is Labor and Workforce Development for the Rutherford County Chamber of Commerce. We work very closely with her in some of our megatronics and other things that we're planning on. So, Ms. Duffield, thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you. On behalf of the Rutherford County Chamber, thank you, Chairman Blair, for the invitation and the opportunity to come and share a few minutes of some of the things that we're working on in workforce development and our partnership with Rutherford County Schools. So really our mission in terms of workforce development is just to make sure that we have a workforce that's ready to meet the needs of our existing workforce, which is growing and changing every day in need and scope, and to be able to prepare for the future, for future opportunities for our continued growth in Rutherford County. We've created, and based on that, the strategic plan that we have put together is really focused on helping to make sure our students and our entire workforce is both college and career ready. There are 4 key strategies. The one I really want to highlight tonight is our third, which is focuses on strengthening ties between business and K-12 education. And just briefly, I wanted to share a few of the programs that we have to help us focus on both long and short-term goals related to that strategy. One, we've just launched this year with the city schools. It's our ACE program. It's an after-school career and career educational exploration program. We are trying it with our city schools and the Boys and Girls Club in Murfreesboro and Smyrna, and we would love to eventually roll this out through the YMCA to the county schools as well. But this program, as well as all of our programs, are really tied to the 16 career and technical education pathways that are available to our students through the Department of Education. We're also supporting the Explore program through Boy Scouts, which provides the opportunity for any high school student, boy or girl, scout or not, for a fee of $25 to participate in a exploring post so that they can learn more about career opportunities. Last year, my son, who's a student at Central Magnet, participated in the Engineering Explore Post, which was hosted by Bill Dunhill at CUD. He had the opportunity to go see the water treatment plant in Smyrna, learn about civil engineering, to visit the Triumph plant in Nashville, to meet with professors and students at Vanderbilt, and to really get a better understanding of what it means to have a career in engineering. We are very excited about an upcoming program next summer where we're looking to provide paid internships for rising seniors and working with the CTE department and the work-based learning program to help them really understand what it means to have a job, to be successful on a job. One of the things that we've heard very clearly over the last several years at the Chamber is that from an employer standpoint, in terms of work readiness for students or young people coming out of school system today, whether that's K-12 or college, is they really don't have soft skills to help them be successful in the workplace, to be able to communicate, to be able to problem solve, to understand what it means to work, because many today don't have that opportunity because of their schedules or other activities. So we want to provide that opportunity for them. And we're working on a partnership with an organization called Road Trip Nation to host on our website career exploration videos that teachers and students across the county will be able to access so that they can investigate more about the different careers that they may study through their career and technical education, or even down into elementary and middle school. I also wanted to give, as I've mentioned, the career and technical education and our feeling and understanding that this is a really critical part of the students' education and making sure that we have a work-ready workforce. I had the privilege today to attend field trips with Mr. Frank Cathy, who is the IT instructor at Laverne High School. He took some of his students to Quanta Computers and to Dell Computers, and those students actually got to see what their certifications that they're earning in the classroom will afford them in jobs coming out of high school. And they got to hear from professionals explain to them how they needed to present themselves for interviews, how to write resumes, and how to be better prepared to be successful in the workforce. And it was very exciting to see them engage with the employers in this way. We are certainly very excited and supportive of the mechatronics pathway, and want to thank Kay Nixon and Tyra and the work from the county to be able to purchase the new set of equipment that will be going into Oakland High School, and the students there will be able to do the dual enrollment right there at Oakland High School. The work that Stephen Frist at Siegel High School is doing in terms of dual enrollment with the TCAT here in Murfreesboro, those certifications that they are earning are providing those students with the opportunity to leave high school, to continue their education, as well as work at the same time, and earn anywhere between $35,000 and $45,000 right out of high school. That is amazing. And it's what the needs of our workforce are telling us are there. We are working on an announcement of an expansion here in Rutherford County of one of our industries. They're in need of 45 welders, machinists, tool and die makers. So the needs from the manufacturing side continue to grow. On the IT side, we are very excited, and Kay and Tyra were a part of our first meeting that we had to launch a Rutherford County Tech Advisory Council, working with our K-12, the TCAT, Motlow, and MTSU, as well as business leaders in our community that are IT providers or IT departments, to begin to create an IT pathway that mirrors what we've done with mechatronics. So the idea of creating dual enrollment pathways in IT so that these students have the opportunity to leave high school, continue their education, and or work at the same time. So we're very excited about that opportunity. And I did want to tie in that this strategy certainly links to one of the elements of the county school system's strategic plan in terms of community partners. And one of the things that we want to help provide is an opportunity for that meaningful engagement beyond dollars. I have children in the school system, so I know that fundraising is a very important part of the relationships with schools and businesses and different partners in the community. But we want to find other ways that businesses can help give back to the schools. For example, on National Manufacturing Day, which was October 3rd, we were able to schedule 7 field trips with 6 different organizations, manufacturing companies here in Rutherford County. We focused on those students that were already enrolled in either the mechatronics program, the information manager, or the MIT program at Siegel, robotics teams, or engineering programs at Central Magnet. And they were able to go to Mali. They were able to visit Bridgestone and Nissan. And we were also able to tie in the mechatronics program at MTSU, and those students were able to tour and visit Barrett and actually shoot some guns. So they had a great day that day. We're working on a Speakers Bureau database, and I also wanted to mention Mali. They were instrumental in providing a significant donation of equipment. They were planning on junking it, recycling it, and I happened to be at the right place at the right time, and I said, would you like to donate that equipment? Because I know some schools who would love to have that. And there were some robots and tables and equipment that made it much easier for the programs at Siegel and Oakland to continue. We're also considering some job fairs for seniors and some other activities, again, to help make them better prepared as they exit the high school and to make those decisions for coming years. And then just briefly, I won't go into a great deal of time on this, but I did want to share with you just some statistics about the deficit in our workforce and why we're so focused on these partnerships with the schools and our higher education partners. So by 2021 in the Nashville regional area, we know that we're going to have a deficit of about 35,000 workers across all industry sectors. We know in Rutherford County, this is based on the governor's Drive to 55, that we need an additional 150,000 people with degrees to help us meet the needs of those projected jobs that will be here by 2025. And this is why I believe that the governor's decision to present the idea for the Tennessee Promise is so critical to the success of our county and to the success of our state. We know that we have about 41% of our high school students that receive a 21 or higher on their ACT, which is great. And we know that that is a big focus in the county school system to increase that ACT average, because that means they're attaining greater knowledge, which is wonderful. However, we know that too, that only about 18% of those students receiving that 21 are college proficient on all 4 subjects, which means they have to take some remedial courses. And the Tennessee Promise, which provides that last year, the last dollar scholarship at either a community college or a college of applied technology, will give those students who may not be as successful going into a 4-year school the opportunity to get those remediation courses out of the way and to work with a mentor and in a smaller environment to help them be successful, and to give them a taste for different career programs that relate to jobs here in our community. So we know that we have about 61% of our students that are going to college, some type of college, and so that means we've got about 40% that are not. I'm excited to say today that we have almost 1,600 high school seniors that have registered for the Tennessee Promise Scholarship Program, and we have almost 300 mentors, volunteers in our community that will be working with these students. We still need about 50 more, and we hope that we'll get those by November 1st, and that we hope that we get as many seniors as possible to register by November 1st, because that is the deadline. If they do not register by November 1st, they will not be eligible for those scholarships. But the exciting thing, some of the statistics based on the program that has been around since 2008, started as Tennessee Achieves in Knox County. Because of the mentoring and the pairing students with an adult that can help encourage them and provide support for these students who are typically first-generation students, 50% of the students that are enrolled in the Tennessee Achieves are now the Tennessee Promise program. They graduate from community college at a 50% higher rate than students that are not enrolled as a part of the Tennessee Achieves program. And there's a 75% retention rate from first year to second year. And typically in a community college, that's about 30%. So there is great return on investment for the dollars that are going into this program. And I just wanted to thank you for your support of that and your continued support of that. Are there any questions that I can answer?
The Carl Perkins Career and Technical Federal Guidelines, they're intended, and they have language in there that discuss K through 12. We really think of career and technical education at a 9 through 12, a high school application. A lot of times we're getting some things out of the way in 9th and 10th grade, and it's really 11 and 12 where we really concentrate. Can you give us any insight as to how career and technical education can apply in grades under 9th grade, and if there's anything that you've become aware of that would be a benefit?
I'm not familiar with anything at the elementary school level other than the idea of increasing awareness of these career pathways. This ACE program that we've started with the city schools is really designed to help students think about those career pathways earlier. My experience, I had a son that is now a sophomore, but when he was an 8th grader at one of the middle schools and he was preparing to go to high school, we weren't sure which one he was going to yet, so the guidance counselor from the associated high school came over and gave them their schedule and said, you're going to need to register for a math and a science and a history, and oh, by the way, you need to sign up for a career and technical education pathway. Well, I was familiar with those, so if he had chosen to go to Siegel High School, we could have helped guide him based on what we knew his interests were into a pathway. But most folks don't have that foundation. So from the chamber standpoint, we're very interested in working with kids in the elementary schools to at least introduce the concept of these pathways and help them understand what jobs are associated with those pathways. And in the middle school, we had the opportunity at Whitworth Buchanan, and we're hoping to do that again with a couple of middle schools this spring, to introduce a career pathway expo. And we worked with the 8th graders. It was a little late because their schedules had already been completed. So this year we would work with the 7th graders. But to introduce the idea of pathways, hey, next February, you're going to be asked to register for high school, and you're going to be asked to pick a pathway. And you're either going to be going to Oakland or Riverdale, most likely, and these are those pathways that you could study. You can study ag, you can study IT, you can study cosmetology, you can study hospitality and tourism. And then, so at Whitworth, we had about 8 different speakers. They were located in classrooms, and the students rotated through those classrooms by homeroom. And they were able to engage with an employer and talk about web design, to talk about healthcare careers, criminal justice careers. We had Brian Robertson from the county government with his unmanned aerial vehicle. He won't let me use the DRONE word. And the kids were very excited because many of them had GoPro cameras, and they, you know, it was exciting for them and exciting for me to see that they're very interested in that. So I think that's in terms of actual programs, I think the more opportunities we have to provide robotics programs in middle school, like Oakland has, I think that would certainly tie in with some of the Perkins intent.
Okay.
There's also a Speakers Bureau. Another program Chamber has, the Business Education Partnership. And you may remember last year, 2 of the Nissan engineers spent a day at Smyrna Middle and worked with the students there, and they did some things related to that. So that's another thing that's beginning to expand some too, is that Speakers Bureau for elementary schools is what it's basically targeting.
Jordan?
I think it would be a good idea for you to, at least if you would, to explore an opportunity to present whatever appropriate material here that you have, and there's a ton of it, to the Health and Education Committee, on the County Commission, and perhaps to the County Commission themselves. The County Commission is, of course, I guess this is probably obvious, but at any rate, they represent hundreds of thousands of taxpayers, and at the end of a good job is, of course, taxes. And if we can get these people trained for these many jobs that we're going to have open in the next 20 and 30 years, and our population is going to double in that time. That's what you all say.
Yes.
Chamber of Commerce says. It's always a good idea to remind the County Commission that at the end of them funding what we beg them to fund is a taxpaying citizen that's a well-paid and well-trained taxpaying citizen. I'm just suggesting that.
I would be honored to do that. Thank you for that suggestion. And just as another note from the Chamber standpoint, we have engaged a consultant to help develop a strategic plan for growing professional jobs in Rutherford County. So that is certainly a target, and I think this IT council that we have started, and we're also looking at starting a healthcare council to work with those employers to really identify what those workforce needs are going to be over the next 5 to 10 years, so that we can be prepared and not caught behind for the future.
You spoke about with the Tennessee Promise program, the remediation opportunity. So if we have a student that may not be college ready for that particular subject, would they take a remediation course and then take the general education course after the remediation?
Correct.
Opportunity? Okay.
Yes. So the challenge for students that go to a 4-year university, of course, those classes cost more, and a remediation course does not count towards their college credits. So sometimes they get frustrated with that and are more likely to drop out. If we have the opportunity for them to participate in the Tennessee Promise, they go get the remediation at one of our community colleges and get that over with. The this Tennessee Promise scholarship covers 5 semesters, so they can get the remediation out of the way in that first semester and then complete their work over the course of 2 years.
You're saying we're still lacking some mentors with the program. What happens if we don't have enough mentors?
Well, we'll twist arms and result to bribery.
There's something we can do to assist you with that?
Just continuing to get the word out. We've got about 9 days left. I think we're probably in good shape because we know that not all of the 15 to 1,600 students that have registered will actually choose to participate in this program. Hopefully they're using it as a if their intent is to go to four-year school, hopefully they're using this as a backup plan, because life happens and you never know what's going to happen between now and May or now and next August. So I think we're probably in good shape, but it would be nice to reach our target.
And there's some training involved?
Yes, so the training, the Tennessee Achieves organization that is working with the mentors, they're the foundation that actually started this program in Knox County. So they've been running it for 5 years, and they've got it down to a science. There's a manual that mentors receive. They come to either the chamber or the community college in Motlow in Smyrna, and it's an hour training, and the Tennessee Achieves folks walks them through what their responsibilities are. It's really 10 to 12 hours over the course of a year. You begin working with your students in January, where you're introduced to them, and then you work with them through January of their freshman year in college. Really, it's more a kick in the seat of the pants, a reminder to, hey, you've got to meet these deadlines. And most of those relationships, because of the way kids use technology today, are texting relationships. It's a reminder on February 1st, hey, your FAFSA is due by February 15th, and texting.
Anybody else? Well, thank you very much
you.
for being with us tonight. Okay, Mr. Odom, I think you have an introduction to
We
make.
do have an introduction. It's the new principal of Rockville Elementary School, Ms. Dana Nichols. Ms. Nichols, would you come up so everyone can see? We're glad to have you at Rockville Elementary. Anything you'd like to say?
And the board for this opportunity, and also to invite you all to come visit Rockville Elementary and see why I haven't stopped smiling.
Very close-knit community, so I'm sure you'll enjoy your time, and you'll also be very successful too, I'm sure. Okay. Well, moving on to number 10.
And this is another career and technical education thing, the Emergency Medical Responder Certification. Career and Technical Education is requesting approval to contract with Stephen Hart Jr. Emergency Medical Services to provide 60 days of training at a cost of $35 per day for a total cost of $2,100. The Emergency Medical Responder Certification will be provided for approximately 20 students at Smyrna High School during the 2014-2015 school year. Funds will be provided by Career and Technical Education General Purpose Funds 141-71-300-399 for the training. The motion is to recommend approval. A motion to approve a contract with Stephen Hart, Jr. Emergency Medical Services to provide 60 days of training at a cost of $35 per day for a total cost of $2,100. The Emergency Medical Responder Certification will be provided for approximately 20 students at Smyrna High during the 2014-2015 school year. Funds will be provided by Career and Technical Education, CTE, General Purpose Funds 141-71-300-399 for the training. And this is the first one of these classes for Rutherford County Schools.
So
Emergency
moved.
Medical.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Holliday. A tie. You can pick whichever one you want, Ms. Joyce. Probably Mr. Estes. Thank you, Mr. Hodge. Okay. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And number 11.
Number 11 is the 2014 Educational Department's 2152 Certification of Compliance with Tennessee Code Annotated Section 493-3104A. The superintendent and the chairman of the board of each LEA, local education agency, shall certify to the commissioner on or before October 15th of the current school year that all children enrolled in the local education agency have been furnished all required textbooks as determined by the commissioner. Recommend approval. Motion for approval of the 2014 ED 2152 Certification of Compliance Report showing all children enrolled in the LEA, local education agency, have been furnished all required textbooks.
Heard the motion or the recommendation? Mr. Young,
Second.
second by Mr. Holliday. Any discussion?
We talked in the work session about the online textbooks and the availability of that resource and getting the word out. So we'll use another opportunity here to make sure that parents and the community are aware that many of our textbooks, almost maybe even most all of our textbooks, are available as an online resource as well. Mr. Odom explained on Tuesday evening that access to that has to come through the school because we can't publish it openly because of requirements of the publisher. But be sure and have that availability and make use of it on those occasions when we might forget a textbook back at school and need to take a look at it that evening.
I suspect there's some students that hate that we're broadcasting that too, so.
I just know how many times I forgot my textbook.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second. I think we need to vote, don't we, Mr. Cook? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Odom, can I back up to 10? Did we discuss that we were going to find out who had EMS certification?
Yes, and we are working on that with Ms. Delbridge and Mr. Tackett. So we're going to get a count and see where we are in providing that training. We still feel there's a significant number, but we're working on it. Ms. Michaels discussed it with Mr. Tackett earlier this week. We just need to, again, do the list and do a count, see where we stand.
So right now, the board we put y'all through some extra work, but the board can expect a list of volunteers and a list of EMS certified staff.
We're trying to get those that are, we wanted, a goal in your discussion was to make sure we have one or more coaches, trained in CPR, that sort of thing, that are carrying our boys and girls on athletic teams. And I think it's going to be fairly high already, but we have the capacity to do the training with even our nurses, who are in almost all of our schools there also. So we'll do that.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to general discussion by board members. Anybody have anything?
Mr. Chairman, as you went back to 10, I had the same thought, and for so long in our community, we've had a number of volunteer services that were opportunities for students to get exposure to emergency training, and recently in the Laverne area, Laverne City has brought the fire department into the city government. Entry into that career field is perhaps a greater challenge with less of those volunteer opportunities. And I think that this program at Smyrna High School is going to be excellent. It's just like the IT department and the IT track that we saw in Career and Technical. It gives them that exposure and credibility to step in and start the process. They're not fully trained by any means, but they've had the exposure to know this is a pathway that is of great interest and they can continue to pursue. So I'm really excited to see this program continue to grow at Smyrna High School.
Would you like to have a spotlight sometime as we get down the road and these kids experience some of it to see what they say about it? I think it would be interesting.
Absolutely.
To do that.
Mr. Odom, would you like to speak on does Governor Haslam's announcement this week, maybe just a little topical view?
There's a couple of things let me mention too, and I'll kind of get to that. I do see Celeste Middleton with us tonight. I attended a leadership meeting at one of the high schools this week, and evidently the State Farm Drive for Education must be going on. A lot of encouragement to call in and vote for your favorite high school, because they've become very competitive this year for those monies that are offered. So that is going on, to let you know. I hope we do well this year. I think we can win. If Wilson County can win something, surely we can. Last year they did very well.
Can we take a moment to welcome all of our leadership, Rutherford? Are y'all considered candidates or what, or students, or? We're in the program. Well, welcome. We're glad to have you. So thank you.
Another thing that the board may be interested in this week, we had, you mentioned Carl Perkins funding. We actually had an audit from the state on Carl Perkins this week. They haven't sent us the letter, but I heard a really good kind of exit interview with them on Wednesday. Mr. Zago, you want to kind of relate some of the things that they said during that?
Come in 6 this week. And when they visited with us, they sit down, were very excited to see the way that Ms. Dixon and Ms. Pilgrim have had everything laid out and the school system's done in the schools. Things that were said were this is the first system we visited where we don't have to go hunt and find. Everything's available for us. We've never seen any system so orderly. And of course, the first thing that we wanted to hear was we had no payback, so we didn't have to pay any funds back to the Carl Perkins for any misuse of funds or anything along that line. But they had everything in order to complete their monitoring, and once again, never seen a system so organized and so well prepared for that monitoring.
They made several comments about the Megatronics program, and because these are people from the state and from other school districts, and so they were very interested in it about how they could model after it some too. So I think we're kind of leading the way in some of this.
Absolutely. Their program that they're leading for us, once again, Ms. Dixon and Ms. Pilgrim are leading for us, is outstanding and the top in the state.
And those funds are used solely for supplies for career and technical.
Yes, sir. And that and those classroom teachers and things along that.
I just want to echo, those career and technical pathways, they are the life-changing element of our educational system right now, because they afford the opportunity to have, as was pointed out by the Chamber of Commerce, a $35,000 to $40,000 a year employment situation, still at a youthful age when you can go take night classes and continue that education, overload your schedule and accomplish so many things, and find yourself at 25, 26 years old with a college education paid for without the student loans that are haunting so many, because you had these life skills that were immediately applicable right after high school. And if you're thinking to yourself, how do I get out of a cycle of generations or something like that as a student in Rutherford County, career and technical pathway is absolutely the key to this. And having those skills that our employers are telling us that they are ready to pay for, it is absolutely a life-changing pathway. And I'm excited to see we're reaching further and further down to make that point to 8th graders and 7th graders and 6th graders and get that message across to families so that they can really, change the future.
May I add one more thing, Mr. Odom, Chairman Blair? I did want to say something about their comments about our teachers in our classrooms and our students. They said they did not visit a single classroom where every single student was not engaged with the teacher in learning, and the teachers were truly happy to be there and pleased to be teaching the programs that they were teaching. They have not experienced that in every situation that they've had this year during their monitoring, but said there was not a single instance of anyone not being engaged in learning in the classroom.
I think that was my takeaway that I enjoyed the most, that the career and technical education teachers that they visited were sold on what they were doing. They were energetic about what they were doing, and they were motivating the kids to do it. And Mr. Estes, they visited the automotive class at Stewart's Creek High School and got to look at that collision class and the equipment and things there, and said it was just amazing what was going on. And I know he even has a waiting list of students trying to get into the class.
And we don't want to forget it helps us with our graduation rate too.
You're going to see that one coming up very shortly. The report card is going to come out in about a week or 2 weeks, and our overall graduation rate's up, but the career and technical education is up considerably, and it's much higher even than all of the academic together. It is the hook that holds many, many students in school.
Celeste, we know about those collision things, don't we? Yes. The thing that I'm also very proud of, that this board for the last several years under the leadership of Chairman Hodge and Chairman Wise and Chairman Burns, that we have demanded or at least influenced that career and technical education be a priority as our other programs are. And I think we are seeing the fruits of that labor and that desire today. So we plan to continue with that effort. Not that we won't any one particular program to have prominence over any other, but everybody has their fair share. And I'm very proud of the board over the years. And again, thank you, Chairman Hodge, for your leadership too. So,
Back to the original question.
yes, sir.
Okay. The governor did announce this week, he had said in a speech a little bit earlier that they would be a vetting of what we know as Common Core to look at it. So he did appoint the state board and a number of other appointees. One of them is Chelsea Spalding, which is one of our assistant principals, will be on the high school math from Riverdale High School. But they're going to be looking at all of the standards in English, language, arts, and math, which is the only ones that are tied to the Common Core. And so they're going to look at those, and the only thing that I understood that the governor and the commissioner said, that he wants to make sure that they maintain the rigor in those standards. So they'll be looking at the standards, I'm sure rewriting some, possibly adding some, possibly deleting some. We'll have to wait till that report that we see, but I think it's a very wise move to move on this. And so that should be done in a fairly short order of time. Supposedly by spring, they're supposed to have most of this ready to go. And from the looks and the names of the people they have picked, that they have selected people from universities and from schools that are practitioners, they're teachers, they're administrators, and then their higher education that have our students come to them. I think they'll be able to pull it off. I think they'll do a very good job of looking at these standards. And then the public will have an opportunity to go online, to look at all of them, make comments about the standards, what they like or do not like about the standards. So it's going to be quite open, is my understanding, for people to look at.
And I think they have a website in Kentucky where you can go online and make comments. Kentucky citizens. So we're basically going to have that same opportunity here in Tennessee. Is that correct?
That was my understanding from what I read. The standards have always been published. You know, that you can see them, they're online, but it's going to be the feedback while they're developing and reviewing these standards will be probably the more different piece that we have not had in the past. The state board sometime this fall is scheduled to look at and review new science standards. So those will be sometime this fall. So Tennessee will be looking at 3 new sets of standards, I guess. You know, sometimes probably by this spring. One of the questions from we have the Teacher Advisory Council met yesterday, and one of the questions was from a science teacher, said, why did you skip 6-year adoption cycle? You know, said, why was science skipped? You know, they moved math up a year and moved science a year later. And of course, our response was the reason science was skipped and not adopted this year is because we did not have new science standards in Tennessee. So when they're adopted, science will follow the next year after math, because at that time then you'll have the standards, and textbook publishers look at your standards, part of your design, their inclusion of things when they make an offering to a school, a state, is based upon those standards. Wonderful thing about printing today, it's not like they used to have to just print, it was kind of all the same. They can come back and begin to tailor textbooks much more when in this digital electronic age. They can come back and tailor it more to more closely align with a state standards. And so there's flexibility that didn't exist 10 years ago, certainly, in printing and textbook alignment, but it'll be interesting to see.
When do we meet with the state legislators? We're going to have plenty of opportunity in November. Is it the 13th? I forget the date. And that's at the city school board offices. The last time that this board met with the state legislatures, and they were almost all here, our delegation from Rutherford County was in this room about the same time last year, I think. And if I'm not mistaken, there were 5 people here, plus all board members from both city and county, and both directors were there. So this is an opportunity to tell your state legislator how you feel about this. But I have a related question on this. regardless of how you may feel about Common Core and regardless of what the state legislature does in the spring. Let's just assume, either way you want to go, but let's assume that it is approved and they decide to go on as is. All right, let's just assume that happens. I have no idea, and I'm not expressing an opinion, but I do have an opinion about this. Textbooks. Mr. Sandvik, we're about to spend $4 million on math books, is that right? Something like that, did you say? Or more? From K through 12. All right. If Common Core is in operation or not, that's going to influence greatly what textbook I would assume that this county adopts, would it not?
It would, and the instruction department, and they have committees, there's citizens on the committee, the state law.
We have experts and we have some parents that were added to the committees to do these things.
They're starting to look at those standards. You know, and it does make it a little bit out of sync.
Yeah, yes, it does.
But when you stop and begin to look at what is the content of an Algebra 1 class, what concepts will be taught in Algebra 1, and what concepts in math, it's more of what year will this be taught? What is the sequence? And so the biggest factor is the sequence and all of what will be taught. Of all the subjects that could happen, it's probably easier in math than most any other subject because of the sequencing. It builds, and you pretty well already know most of the content for an algebra or a geometry class. 8th grade, and if you've helped your children or grandchildren lately, you may very well have noticed that what you studied in high school is now middle grades or lower sometimes and all. So the trend has actually been, I guess, in recent years to push it down to lower grades. There's been a few good things that's going on now that I had an opportunity to teach when modern math came out, modular math and lots of things like that. That's been a number of years ago. That I can recall. It was very, very different, the different number series and all that we had at that time. But really, they are coming back now with the standards. Kids are now having to learn the multiplication table. They're taking the calculators away from the lower elementary grade again.
Wonderful.
That you learn that. It doesn't come till later. So some of the things that's already taken place that probably this committee will continue or certainly look at in that is some of those things that I'm talking about there. So it's going to look more like probably what you were accustomed to, but maybe at a little lower grade.
Well, in a very preliminary look at Common Core, and that's probably perhaps everybody in the room, but I don't really have any particular problem with the curriculum or when it's taught, or the concepts or goals, or the standards, which now are Tennessee standards. Now, what I have a problem with is the methods in which that concept is taught. And a lot of this is needlessly, and I know I'm getting into an opinion now, which I said I was going to avoid, but needlessly complicated, in my judgment, right tonight. Now, we're still working on it, and I guess all of us are, and we know this is coming. I'm aware of that, and I'm open-minded, but I sympathize with a large number of people that have called or emailed me on this subject, which is, as I said, in the paper today, so I certainly can't deny it since the newspaper is here and she will not leave me alone. Almost, I'd say 95% of what the material that I have gotten has been negative, or at least very unsure and nervous about it. Let's put it that way.
Mr. Odom, you pointed out in your comments about this that we'll be taking a look at the science standards in the state of Tennessee, that the State Board of Education will do that in the coming months. And in your comments, I thought it was noteworthy that these are the Tennessee standards. They've always been the Tennessee standards. They have nothing to do with Common Core, and they are unrelated to Common Core. In comments just before that, you pointed out that Common Core is related to language arts and mathematics. And that's where Common Core exists. And I think we have a responsibility to make sure that that is a message that is clear and is understood, because Common Core is not a big umbrella covering all that is taught in education. It's a specific entity, as the legislature looks at it, that is related to mathematics and language arts. I'm always interested and specific to point that out.
There's a national group that worked on science that, and it's not part of Common Core, called Next Generation Science Standard, and Tennessee did not take those. Will there be some of the same things? Probably, when you get to weather, as a topic and things that's inclusion, but Tennessee chose not to go with the national standards in the science, and it just wholeheartedly adopt the Next Generation Science Standard, but create their own, and that's being reviewed by teachers and people and all now. But it's scheduled for sometime this fall. Was supposed to be rolled out for first reading or something, I think.
It's fall, but I think the adoption's 2017.
Okay, 2 years out.
I think it'll be another interesting year of dynamics between the governor's office and the state board and the legislators and all of the professional educators, or the boots on the ground, if you will. So we'll be watching, and I'm hopeful that our school boards around the state, our directors of schools, our stakeholders, especially our certified and classified employees, will reach out and communicate with these legislators and give their opinion. Let them know how they feel and what they feel. I think that's reaching out and touching them is the only way to be effective, and I hope we all will do that this year.
I'm talking too much, but I'd like to reinforce once again Tennessee Promise. I know Ms. Duffield did and others. One of the things, the problems that we're facing somewhat in Rutherford County, and I saw some of the numbers from Williamson County and all, so many of our students are thinking, I'm going to a 4-year college, I've got a Hope Scholarship, I've got the grades, I want to go to MTSU, that we're having difficulty getting students, and they're setting up labs, they're taking kids into the labs in these high schools and all to do it, but we want the people that's watching us on TV to understand this is a last dollar program. So as Ms. Duffield said, it can pay in addition to your Hope if you need that. I just don't see why in the world anybody would not take the opportunity. If you graduate from high school in Tennessee this year and you are signed up by November 1, and this is the last board meeting before that deadline, November 1st, why I'm doing this, why in the world would you go ahead and sign up for it? And if conditions change, if you need it or you decide you do not need it, then you've created flexibility. But if you haven't signed up after November the 1st, Mom and Dad, you may be on the hook. So I hope that grandparents and parents will encourage their students and actually sit down with them. You can sign up online and do the process before November the 1st for the Tennessee Promise. We do need to do this. Money in your pocket that you're passing up.
Ms. Duffield, remind you that Milan's here to get the word out for the mentors, and our media relations professional is James Evans over on the end, and he has access to everybody. So if you need his help, I'm sure he'll be very helpful.
The list I received today from the probably the largest group of employees was either from the school system themselves or Rutherford County government. So we greatly appreciate the mayor's support as well as the school system.
Well, I think James has made a very strong effort to get that word out too. So, Ms. Joyce, I need to make this announcement. Okay. Anybody else before Ms. Joyce gave me a note? The board will visit potential school sites on Saturday, November 15th. We want to meet here at the central office at 8 a.m. So again, mark your calendars, Saturday, November 15th. Here at the central office at 8. Okay. Anything else to come before this board? Again, very pleased to have all of our guests with us tonight. Staff, you really didn't have a choice, I don't guess, so, but still pleased to get to see your smiling faces. So, Ms. George, do we have anything else? Okay. That, we are adjourned.